This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Anjali Kamat.
Welcome, everyone. President Obama rounded off his three-day visit to India today by addressing a special joint session of both houses of India's parliament. Accompanied by some 250 business executives, the president's visit to India is part of a stated 10-day tour of Asia to boost U.S. exports. So far, President Obama has sealed some $15 billion in defense and trade deals with India that he said would create an additional 50,000 jobs in the United States. Speaking before the Indian Parliament Monday, Obama emphasized that India had, quote, emerged, and said he hoped to deepen the economic, security, and democratic cooperation between the two countries.
I am not the first American president to visit India, nor will I be the last. But I am proud to visit India so early in my presidency. It's no coincidence that India is my first stop on a visit to Asia, or that this has been my longest visit to another country since becoming president. For in Asia and around the world, India is not simply emerging. India has emerged. And it is my firm belief that the relationship between the United States and India, bound by our shared interests and our shared values, will be one of the defining partnerships of the 21st century. This is the partnership that I've come here to build.
President Obama also noted how the relationship between India and the United States had changed over the decades.
Now, just as India has changed, so too has the relationship between our two nations. In the decades after independence, India advanced its interests as a proud leader of the non-aligned movement. Yet too often, the United States and India found ourselves on opposite sides of a north-south divide, estranged by a long Cold War. Those days are over. Here in India, two successive governments, led by different parties, have recognized that deeper partnership with America is both natural and necessary. And in the United States, both of my predecessors, one a Democrat, one a Republican, worked to bring us closer, leading to increased trade and a landmark civil nuclear agreement.
Obama also spoke about the influence that Mahatma Gandhi had on him, as well as on Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr.
Throughout my life, including my work as a young man on behalf of the urban poor, I've always found inspiration in the life of Gandhiji and his simple and profound lesson to be the change we seek in the world. And just as he summoned Indians to seek their destiny, he influenced champions of equality in my own country, including a young preacher named Martin Luther King. After making his pilgrimage to India a half-century ago, Dr. King called Gandhi's philosophy of nonviolent resistance the only logical and moral approach in the struggle for justice and progress. So we were honored to visit the residence where Gandhi and King both stayed, Mani Bhavan, and we were humbled to pay our respects at Rajghat. And I am mindful that I might not be standing before you today as President of the United States had it not been for Gandhi and the message he shared and inspired with America and the world.
President Obama said India, more than any other country, had an interest in a stable Pakistan and Afghanistan. He said he welcomed India's bid for Security Council membership, but urged India to take a stronger position in condemning human rights violations in countries like Burma. He did not mention Kashmir in a speech to the Parliament, but in a news conference earlier in the day with the Indian Prime Minister, Manmohan Singh, Obama noted that the United States cannot impose a solution on this issue. Meanwhile, a number of groups are protesting Obama's visit to India, including some left political parties, survivors of the 1984 deadly Bhopal disaster, and the families of cotton farmers who committed suicide, partly as a result of U.S. agricultural subsidies. Some Maoist and Kashmiri leaders also called for a strike during President Obama's visit. For more, we're joined from Chicopee, Massachusetts by Vijay Prashad. He's the George and Martha Kellner Chair in South Asian History and Professor at Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut. He's the author of 11 books, most recently The Darker Nations, A People's History of the Third World. Welcome to Democracy Now!, Professor Prashad. Start off by talking about the significance of President Obama's three-day trip to India.
Thanks for having me, Amy. Well, I don't want to rain on anybody's parade. It's been quite a visit for President Obama and the First Lady. In Bombay, in Mumbai, they danced with school children. President Obama answered questions at St. Xavier's College from the students. At one level, it's been a great public relations tour. During his speech in the joint session of Parliament, President Obama quoted from Mahatma Gandhi saying, "Be the change you want to see." And this is where things get a little more complicated. Because whereas everything seems to be delightful on the surface, and there's a lot of talk of the two democracies coming closer, behind the scenes, there are some trade deals that are being conducted that actually might be inimical to both India and the United States. And so, be the change you want to see, I'm not quite so sure.
Vijay, Prashad, President Obama traveled to India with 250 business executives. Can you talk about some of the deals that were concluded, trade deals, defense deals?
Yes, India is the world's largest importer of weaponry. And the United States has been very keen to sell as much weaponry as possible, to close as many deals with India in the next couple of years. One of the reasons is some of the Indian armaments are coming to a point where they'll need to have either retrofitting or to be, substituted. So previously, India used to buy from Russia largely and from Europe. And the United States is very eager to enter this market. And this is perhaps a $50 to $60 billion market, already twice what the United States and India do in trade. So one of the main elements of the trade agenda, which the corporate executives went for, was arms deals. And already it seems some arms deals have been signed. One arms deal will perhaps be signed at the end of the year, and that is for 126 jet fighters. That deal will be about $10 billion. The second set of deals are again about a very small group of people. And this is a set of deals to enhance the lifestyle of very rich people and the urban centers. For instance, there's a deal to build Harley-Davidson motorcycles in India. This is not a motorcycle for the common person. This is a motorcycle for the affluent. So thus far, the kinds of deals, the trade that we've seen being cut between India and the United States benefit the arms industry and they benefit the very rich. As far as ordinary people are concerned, be the change you want to see, I don't think so.
It's interesting. I read this article twice in the Times when it said that the chief executive officer of Boeing, Jim McNerney, who also leads the president's export council, greeted Mr. Obama when Air Force One touched down. I read it twice because I was confused. The U.S. executives were greeting Obama when he came to India, but they timed their own executive meeting. Among the leaders are Jeffrey Immelt, who is the chief executive of GE, which won a $750 million turbine order. They timed a conference in India to be there when Obama arrived. The significance of this, General Electric, Boeing.
Well, about 5 years ago, India and the United States signed a nuclear deal. And over the last 5 years, there's been a great deal of disagreement about what this deal is going to mean. As far as India is concerned, the United States carried a lot of water for the country in the nuclear suppliers group to make sure that many of the kind of statutory problems were taken care of. India, on the other hand, has wanted to keep an open mind as far as where it's going to buy its raw materials and machinery from. In other words, the Russians and the Europeans, once again, want to be suppliers to India for a very lucrative new nuclear industry complex. The United States has wanted to enter this arena, but it has found two problems. One problem has been that the Indian Parliament asked for all its suppliers to maintain liability for what they are selling in India. In other words, if there is a Bhopal-type accident, the corporation must take responsibility. The American companies, such as Westinghouse and GE, have been very loath to allow this kind of liability on themselves. They are saying we'll only take responsibility if the machinery is broken, not if there's an accident. So this is the big reason why GE and Westinghouse have been such important players with the Obama trip to India. They are keen for the Obama effect to dazzle the Indian Parliament into allowing this liability question to come off the table. The second thing, of course, is that GE and Boeing are big manufacturers, especially Boeing, of military planes and military hardware. And once again, India has leaned typically towards Europe and Russia for good reason to buy military hardware. And again, they want Obama to pressure the Indian government. The reason they have been moving to Russia and Europe is that the Russians and the Europeans have been, if you can bear this word, less fickle with their arms sales. You see, what happened when India tested nuclear weapons in 1998 was the United States cut off sales of arms to India. So the Indian Parliament, and that is the arms buyers, the military and others, say we don't want to get involved with the United States. The United States might cut off their supply to us at any point. Let's continue with the Russians and the Europeans who have less problems with things like nuclear testing. So the real reason why GE and Westinghouse are playing such a big role in the Obama trip is they are hoping very much that Obama will carry water for them in the Indian Parliament to pass the liability question aside and to move, so that the United States gets the contracts and not Russia or the Europeans.
Professor Vijay Prashad is joining us from Western Massachusetts, South Asian history professor at Trinity College in Connecticut. This is Democracy Now! We'll be back with him.